Can you believe my own mother-in-law, the woman who smiles to my face and praises my cooking, had the audacity to call her private security on me? And not just that, she manipulated my husband, the man who swore to love and cherish me, into believing I was a threat, turning him against me in our own home. I'm still reeling from the shock, the betrayal, and the sheer audacity of it all. Tell me, would you have stood by and let someone tear your family apart like that? Because I certainly didn't. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. My husband, Mark, and I had been married for 5 blissful years. We had a beautiful home, 2 adorable children, and what I thought was an unshakable bond. Our life was good, really good. Mark worked hard, and I managed the household and our growing kids. We were a team, always, or so I thought. The only fly in our otherwise perfect ointment was Mark's mother, Eleanor. Eleanor was a force of nature, a woman of considerable wealth, and an even more considerable ego. She was used to getting her way, always, and had a habit of managing every aspect of her children's lives, even after they were grown and married. For years, I'd tried to navigate her complexities with grace, biting my tongue, smiling politely, and generally trying to be the perfect daughter-in-law. I truly believed that if I was kind enough, accommodating enough, she would eventually warm to me. I wanted to be part of her family, to be genuinely loved and accepted. Eleanor's wealth wasn't just inherited. She had built a significant portion of it herself through shrewd investments and a high-powered career in real estate. This meant she had a formidable network, including, as I would soon discover, a very dedicated team of private security personnel who were more like personal enforcers than bodyguards. They were always discreet, lurking in the background at family gatherings, but their presence was a constant reminder of Eleanor's power and influence. Mark, being her only son, was the apple of her eye, and she had always had a very tight grip on him. Before we got married, there were subtle hints of her possessiveness, little comments about how no woman would ever be good enough for her Mark, or how I would need to step up to her standards. I brushed them off as typical motherly concern, naive as I was. I thought marriage would change things, that our united front would soften her. I was so incredibly wrong. The issues really started to escalate after our second child, Lily, was born. With 2 young children, my life became a beautiful chaos. My focus was entirely on our family, and while I still tried to be respectful and attentive to Eleanor, my time and energy were naturally more divided. Eleanor, however, saw this as a personal affront. She started making more frequent, unannounced visits, offering unsolicited advice that often contradicted my parenting choices. She'd criticize my cooking, the way I dressed the children, even the decor of my own home. Mark, bless his heart, tried to mediate. He'd gently tell his mother to ease up, to let us parent in our own way, but his efforts were like trying to stop a tidal wave with a teacup. Eleanor would just smile sweetly, nod, and then do exactly what she wanted anyway. She had this way of making everything seem like she was just trying to help, even when her actions were deeply undermining. One particular incident stands out. It was Lily's first birthday. We had planned a small, intimate party at our house with just close family. Eleanor, without consulting us, decided to invite half of her social circle, turning our cozy celebration into a sprawling, extravagant affair. She even hired a professional photographer and a catering team, completely taking over the event. I remember standing in my own kitchen, feeling like a guest in my own home, watching as Eleanor directed everyone, including me, on what to do. When I tried to politely suggest that perhaps we should stick to our original plan, she just patted my arm and said, Nonsense, dear. Lily deserves the best, and I know exactly what the best looks like. Mark, seeing the frustration on my face, tried to pull her aside for a quiet word, but she simply dismissed him with a wave of her hand. Don't be a spoilsport, Mark. It's for the baby. The tension simmered for months. I tried to talk to Mark about it, expressing my feelings of being suffocated and disrespected. He would listen, he would empathize, and he would promise to talk to his mother. But nothing ever truly changed. Elinor was a master manipulator, always finding a way to twist things, to make herself out to be the victim or the benevolent benefactor. She'd call Mark in tears, saying I was keeping the grandchildren from her, or that I was driving a wedge between them. Mark, caught between his mother and his wife, often seemed to default to appeasing Elinor, perhaps out of a lifetime of conditioning, or perhaps because her power was just too intimidating. I started to feel like I was fighting a losing battle, like Elinor was slowly but surely chipping away at the foundation of my marriage. I loved Mark deeply, and I knew he loved me, but his inability to fully stand up to his mother was becoming a cavernous rift between us. The real turning point came when Elinor started making thinly veiled threats about Mark's inheritance. She had always made it clear that a significant portion of her estate would go to Mark, but now, during a particularly heated discussion about our children's schooling choices which, again, she was trying to dictate, she said, "Of course, dear, it's your choice. But you know, investments need to be managed carefully, and family loyalty is very important when it comes to long-term financial planning." It was a subtle jab, but the message was clear. Cross her, and Mark might lose out. I was furious, not for myself, but for Mark, and for the pressure she was putting on him. I couldn't believe she would use something so personal and vital as his future security as a weapon. This wasn't just about meddling anymore. This was about control, absolute control. I decided that enough was enough. I couldn't let her continue to poison our marriage and our family. I sat Mark down and told him, in no uncertain terms, that we needed to set firm boundaries with Elinor. I explained that her behavior was damaging our relationship, and that if he didn't support me in this, I didn't know how we could continue. It was a difficult conversation, filled with tears and frustration on both sides. Mark, to his credit, seemed to finally understand the gravity of the situation. He promised me he would talk to her, seriously talk to her, and make it clear that her interference had to stop. I felt a glimmer of hope, a fragile belief that we could overcome this together. Mark went to talk to his mother the next day. I don't know exactly what was said, but he returned home looking defeated, his face pale and drawn. He told me that Elinor had reacted badly, very badly. She had accused me of turning him against her, of being a gold digger, of trying to isolate him from his family. She had apparently thrown a tantrum, feigning illness and even threatening to cut him off entirely, not just financially, but emotionally. Mark, overwhelmed and clearly manipulated, seemed to shrink before my eyes. He started questioning my motives, asking if I was really trying to drive a wedge. My heart sank. This was exactly what I had feared. Elinor had twisted everything, and Mark, instead of standing with me, was starting to believe her narrative. The woman had expertly played the victim card, and my husband, her son, had fallen for it hook, line, and sinker. The atmosphere in our home became thick with unspoken accusations and resentment. Mark grew distant, his eyes always wary, his words clipped. He started taking his mother's calls in private, whispering into the phone, avoiding my gaze. I felt like I was living with a stranger. The man I loved, the man I married, was slipping away, replaced by someone suspicious and cold. It was agonizing. I tried to talk to him, to reason with him, to remind him of our love, our vows, our children, but it was like talking to a wall. Elinor had effectively poisoned his mind against me. I felt a deep sense of betrayal, not just from Elinor, but from Mark. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Here I was, watching my marriage crumble, my husband turned against me by his own mother, and her veiled threats about his inheritance hanging over our heads like a dark cloud. I could either passively stand by and watch my life unravel, or I could fight for my family, for my marriage, for my own sanity. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have confronted Elinor directly, even after she had alienated your husband? Would you have tried to reach out to other family members for support? Or would you have simply walked away, accepting the devastating loss? I really want to know what you would have chosen. I knew I couldn't walk away, not without a fight. My children deserved a mother who fought for their family, and I deserved a husband who truly saw me. I decided that Elinor's power stemmed from her wealth and her perceived control, and I needed to expose her tactics. I needed to show Mark the truth, undeniably. I started documenting everything. Every snide comment, every unannounced visit, every manipulative phone call, every instance of her trying to undermine me. I bought a small, discreet voice recorder and started carrying it with me, especially when Elinor was around. I also installed a hidden camera in our living room after a particularly aggressive visit, where she went through my personal papers. I knew it felt extreme, but I was desperate. I was fighting for my marriage, and desperate times call for desperate measures. The opportunity came during Elinor's next visit. She came over, ostensibly to see the grandchildren, but immediately started criticizing my new sofa, implying that I had poor taste and was wasting Mark's money. Then she launched into a tirade about my parenting, telling me I was too soft, that the children were running wild, and that I clearly didn't know how to raise them properly. She then turned her attention to Mark, who was sitting silently, looking uncomfortable. "Mark, you know I only have your best interests at heart," she began, her voice dripping with false concern. "This woman is trying to isolate you from your family, from your legacy. She's manipulative, dear. You need to be careful. I have people who can look into things you know, people who can make sure you're protected from untoward influences." That was it. That was the moment. The explicit threat, the thinly veiled accusation of me being an untoward influence. I looked at Mark, hoping to see a flicker of recognition, a sign that he saw through her act. But his face was blank, almost defeated. My heart ached, but my resolve hardened. I let her continue her monologue for a few more minutes, recording every word, every patronizing tone, every manipulative insinuation. Later that evening, after Elinor had left, I sat Mark down. I told him I had something to show him, something he needed to see and hear with an open mind. I played him the recordings from the voice recorder, starting with the Lily's birthday party incident, then the conversation where she threatened his inheritance, and finally, the recording from just hours before. I then showed him clips from the hidden camera, showing her going through my personal items, looking at our bank statements, and even searching through my wardrobe. The change in Mark's face was slow but devastating. First, confusion, then disbelief, then a dawning horror, and finally, a profound sadness. He listened in silence, his shoulders slumping further with each recording. He saw his mother, not as the loving, concerned parent he had always believed her to be, but as a cunning, controlling manipulator. When the recordings finished, the silence in the room was deafening. Mark finally looked at me, his eyes filled with tears. I can't believe it," he whispered, his voice cracking. She did all that, to us, to you." He was shattered. He finally saw what I had been trying to tell him for so long. He saw her for who she truly was. The spell was broken. We talked for hours, Mark expressing his shame and regret for not believing me sooner, for letting his mother turn him against me. I assured him that all that mattered was that he saw the truth now. The next day, Mark confronted Eleanor. He did it without me, which I think was important. He told her that he knew everything, that he had seen and heard her true colors. He told her that her behavior was unacceptable, that she had deeply hurt him and me, and that she was no longer welcome in our home until she genuinely acknowledged her actions and apologized. Eleanor, of course, reacted with outrage. She denied everything, accused me of fabricating evidence, and threatened to call her private security to deal with me. That's when Mark dropped the bomb. "Go ahead, Mother," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "Call them, but know that if you do, the police will be involved. Because what you've done, what you've threatened, is harassment and intimidation. And I have all the evidence to prove it." Eleanor was stunned into silence. Her face, usually so composed and imperious, crumpled. She knew Mark wasn't bluffing. She knew the consequences. Her private security, her perceived untouchability, suddenly meant nothing in the face of legal repercussions and undeniable proof. She tried to backtrack, to apologize, to spin another story, but Mark was unyielding. He had finally seen the light, and there was no going back. The aftermath wasn't easy. Eleanor, for the first time in her life, faced consequences for her manipulative behavior. She called incessantly, trying to apologize, trying to bribe us, trying to trip Mark, but we held firm. We told her that true reconciliation would only happen when she truly understood the gravity of her actions and sought professional help for her controlling tendencies. It was a long road. She eventually started therapy, whether out of genuine desire to change or fear of losing Mark completely, I don't know. But the visits became less frequent, the calls less demanding, and the criticism ceased. Our marriage, however, grew stronger than ever. Mark and I had faced an incredible challenge, and we had come out on the other side, more united and resilient. He became my fiercest defender, a true partner in every sense of the word. We learned the importance of trust, communication, and setting firm boundaries, even with family. Our children grew up in a home free from the toxic influence of their grandmother's manipulation, surrounded by love and respect. This whole ordeal taught me that sometimes you have to fight for what you believe in, even when it feels like the whole world is against you. It taught me the power of documentation, of having undeniable proof when facing a master manipulator. And it taught me the importance of a partner who, even after being misled, is willing to open their eyes and stand by your side. If you've ever felt like you're battling a manipulative in-law or a toxic family member, know that you're not alone. Like this video if you were on my side through this whole mess. Subscribe for more stories like this, and please, share your final thoughts on this whole ordeal in the comments section below. What would you have done differently? I'll see you all in the next story.